questions and kind of observations that members may wish to make. So any questions that arise from those or any points that anybody wants to make from those two presentations? But yes, we've got people wandering around with kind of microphones. Just to indicate, there's a gentleman over there.
Thank you. Just one thing that struck me, looking at the excellent presentation, was that when it comes to fish and meat, we have in various different outlets, we have a meat and fish counter which is manned. And I just think, could this not be extended to fruit and vegetables? There's two benefits to that, eh? One is that people could bring along bags to collect their fruit and veg, and also there's a social interaction which is so often missing in the community.
Thank you. That's a great question, actually. And I guess I'm not the only person who's seen a rival retailer shutting down delicatessens and meat counters across the country. I think the one thing that is certain to me that we've done in Chipping Norton, we've done in Bolton and Water particularly, is that customer interaction. And it is something we've invested in, it's something we will be investing in. I'm not sure at the moment exactly where this is going in terms of fruit, veg in particular. We know something has to be done differently. There is a member interaction bit which is huge. Have we got the answers at the moment? No. But it is something we need to look at. But certainly in Chipping Norton at the moment, we're investing a lot in that artisan bit, member, customer interactions. Fair point.
Could I just add one more thing, which is that we incentivise customers to bring along their own bags, or they have to pay for them. Yeah? The same, you could actually put that incentive to these counters by saying, if you buy your fruit and veg in the counter, bring your own bag, they're actually cheaper. It's just that little extra incentive.
Which is exactly what this session here today is about, is putting those ideas forward. And I know Adam and Matt are talking specifically at the next forum we've got around different innovations we're doing. So thank you.
There's a gentleman there.
Hello, Chris Hall from Wrexham. Just wanted to ask about, I love the presentation and the environmental approach that you're taking. That's great. But we've just got to bring the two things together, really, because the environmental side is fantastic and we're seeing lots of bottles being picked up and all that sort of thing. But it's got to come back to the shops and the business. And the changes that are then going to mean the plastic that's in the shops is still being done in a new way with the paper or cardboard or whatever, so that you then deliver a bit of profit at the end of this. So are we bringing the environmental bit with the profit issue bit?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the core things about everything I presented on, especially around the One Change, is the Society's Environmental Steering Group, and also now a subgroup around that. Everything that goes through has to have a really solid business case and a return, which means sometimes things can't be done, but it has to be sustainable in the broader sense, exactly as you say. And those groups really help that to happen, enable that to happen. So we're always looking at the things we're doing, whether it be compostable options, to make sure that it has that local impact as well as a commercial point of view.
There's a lady there.
I was very pleased to see that you moved your tomatoes into a cardboard box, but disappointed that it comes with a film wrapper. And I'm talking about your tomatoes which have any taste. I mean, you do provide the loose ones, but they are taste-free. And what I would like to see is, if you use film, and I do understand why you might use film, why not have a point in store where you would take that film back and recycle it yourself? Because film can be recycled, it just takes special treatment. And another, just point number 2 is, I do buy cheese and butter from Sainsbury's because they'll provide it, their butter comes in paper. And their cheese, they will cut a bit off for you, and you can put it in your own container. But regrettably, that cheese comes to the shop wrapped in plastic. So you really need, I think, to get onto your suppliers to try and deplastify the supply chain. Because it's not much, I mean, I buy my cheese 6 weeks in advance, so it's worth it. It's not worth it having little bits. I just take a whole block from Sainsbury's wrapped in plastic. But that's regrettable. I'd rather not do that.
Again, it's a good question. So, and it's always worth reminding members, I think, at these events we do. We, in the Co-op movement in the UK, source our fruit generally through one central buying point, generally. It used to be called CRTG, now called FRTS. Phil, as Group Chief Exec, sits on there as a director. We have in counties a very large say in what that central buying group are doing. I know, I'll speak for him, Phil is passionate about this. You've seen the effects we've been doing over the last 12 months or so. We're not the only society which is putting pressure on that central buying group to say, it's great what you're doing, but we should be doing more. We should be leading the way in some of this stuff. Personally, I look at some of the examples Mike gave and say, yeah, that's great, but I would expect the co-op movement to be that a little bit further advanced. I am deeply conscious we're in danger of stamping all over Matt and Adam, who are just about to speak at the next session. They will talk about some of the great things we're doing with local suppliers in some of our stores, where we have got the freedom to really drive this forward. And I hope we get the examples of exactly what we're doing on a local basis. But the main thing with the Central Co-op, we have got a voice, we are pushing it forward. Do I think we should go quicker? Yes, I do. And I think we all do.
Any further questions, points that anybody wants to make? Yeah. Up there.
Yeah, about the plastic bottles, the one change that would be transformational and has been very successfully employed in other countries for the past 100 years is to have a returnable deposit on your plastic bottles, and that obviously stops people throwing them out in the first place, and if you do happen to throw a plastic bottle out, people come along and pick it up because they know that they can get 5p or whatever it is deposit on it for returning it. Is there any chance of the counties and the other co-ops campaigning nationally? It would have to be. It would transform things nationally for deposits to return plastic bottles.
Yeah, so certainly on the first part around the deposit scheme, so one of the big reasons and concepts of the reverse vending facility that we are trialling is we are also trialling the methods that can adopt, including the return deposit opportunity. So the organisation we're working with have provided us various details on how that can work, working with the supplier of the plastic through to us, through to the customer, back through the circle. I know that Scott Co-operative have looked into that as well. So there is certainly an interest there across the co-op movement. I think anything that we can do to support the recyclability, we would obviously be really keen to do, as long as it does have that real end environmental benefit that we're looking for. So yeah, I think we're certainly fully supportive of trying to get to that sort of stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here from a place called Knighton in mid-Wales. Unfortunately, we don't have any representation, so I think that needs looking at. I'm representing a very small environmental group called T-Valley Environment Group, and we have got this project called Project Plastic in our town in Knighton. And I have to say, I mean, it was very interesting, your talk, but I didn't feel it went anywhere near far enough. I was quite disappointed. And I've researched the policies of some of the other supermarkets, and Morrison's, for example, have, in my opinion, shown a much more robust approach so far to the reduction of difficult to recycle plastic materials and single-use plastics. They seem to have gone quite a bit further than the co-op, which is slightly disappointing. I've yet to meet a single person who wants plastic packaging on their fruit and veg. I think this has been mentioned already. And in view of that, I believe the Co-op would be applauded if it would consider committing today the scrapping of unnecessary plastic around our fruit and veg. A more immediate, doable action would be to replace plastic bags used for loose fruit and veg, like they're doing in Morrison's with some paper bags. Obviously, I was going to ask you to explain your current policy. You've already mentioned that. But it would be nice if you could give the membership a really strong commitment to the reduction and eventual elimination of single-use plastics. I think talking about recycling is fine. We all recycle, I do, and I'm sure that that is relatively easy to recycle. But it's actually having the plastics in the first place. So please, could you make some commitment, real commitment, not by 2025 or 20 whatever. Can't we make some commitment here and now?
Yeah.
I'm going to try and take that in 3 parts, if I can. The first, I will say, Knighton's got a special place in my heart, always has done with the air ambulance bit just by the store. Do I think we've done enough in Knighton and areas like that to hook up with local communities on that basis? Probably not. As I'm speaking to both Mike and myself, more than happy to speak to you lunchtime or whenever to actually see what we can do in that specific site, because I think it's important we get member representation in some of these sites which are perhaps some way away from others. That's the first bit. Do I employ what Morrison's have done? Absolutely. I don't think there is a retailer I can think of out there that isn't doing something in this sphere. Do I think they could do more, we could do more? Yes, absolutely, and that's the point I think Mike was making. This has got to be an industry change. If we believe in the UN Sustainable Development Goals and we're all working towards it, as an industry this thing has to change. We've concentrated, rightly or wrongly, on working with FRTS, the National Buying Group, to try and reduce single-use packaging and eliminate it where we can. We've concentrated on local suppliers to try and reduce, eliminate where we can. A lot of the stuff we're doing is around what can we do about recycling. You've seen the stand over there about reverse vending, etc. But probably the biggest thing I think we can do, and we are concentrating on, which is a session going on right at this moment, is education. Whilst I accept everybody in this audience will be doing recycling, I'm not entirely certain that is something as a population we're doing at the moment. So it's really those 3 strands. The One Pledge campaign was exactly what you are asking for. It is our members saying to us, we pledge to do things individually. I think quite rightly as a society, we need to then come back and say, okay, that is what we are doing as a pledge. And I would guess this isn't the end of this plastic campaign. We'll be talking about it at half-year member meetings, etc. So absolutely take the point. We'd love to meet you afterwards just to talk about Knighton specifically, because I think there's things we could develop.
Could I take one more? Is there one more question?
Thank you. Yes, John Tyrrell from Birmingham. The question is about the links with other co-op. My own connection with co-op in Birmingham, I found one mid-counties store which is so small that it has very little. So coming to, I think this is the 3rd AGM, and the sorts of things that I've seen whetted my appetite. There's just not on. But I just filled in a questionnaire online for the AGM of Co-op nationally, and that was quite difficult, finding all the information, reading all about it and so on. But that was interesting. The other store I have, I think it's Central England, and I know very little about that. I've got no connection, so what's going on there I really don't know. So coming to this and being involved in things, how am I connected to the other co-ops in this respect? I noted in the presentation there was comment about working together in this way, but I find that quite difficult. I have got a big connection with the counties, evidently, through energy. And there again, I've found it quite exciting at various times. A few years ago, what was happening quite excited me. But having had consultations phoned up with problems. Been quite disappointed. So there are issues there. Thank you.
I think it's an excellent question, and it's I think in part reflects where the movement has been in the last kind of 4 or 5 years since the group itself went through almost an existentialist crisis, and it has obviously been focused on getting itself back into a shape that means it's got a sustainable future. And I think what it has tended to do is that it's gone in one path to actually secure that future, and the other independents have had to kind of go through their own kind of routes to, again, produce a strategic way forward. And what we need, I think, to kind of reflect is how we can, as cooperators, cooperate much more better with one another, so that there is a kind of a more information flow, and people can much more easily and readily kind of understand what is happening in their own geographical areas. And that's something I know that the board is keen to do, is keen to work forward around that cooperation amongst cooperators kind of strategy. Can I kind of say, I think the range of questions and observations that we've had from members that kind of illustrates how important it is for us to actually maintain and build on the insights that come from members. And I think our presentations have also identified in the videos that where we have people who have, if you like, come forward and work together with us at the local level to actually develop and build innovation, that's one of the real strengths of us as an organisation. We're not just after the commercial end, we're after the overall development of a world and a local society that actually has other elements other than just sheer profitability driving it forward. Just if you'll give me kind of going back to the 1970s, I was a Saturday boy working in a local co-op, and just the gentleman over there. And I can remember that we used to get all our produce from local farms and local wholesalers, and that we, with all our fruit and vegetable was in kind of dumps that people used to fill and put in their own bags, and then kind of pay at the checkout. Maybe the kind of old things are sometimes things we need to kind of reinvent and reintroduce if we're actually going to be sustainable. But it was an interesting kind of thought that went through my mind in the 1970s. We need to go back to actually ensure that we actually have a future. Thank you all for your comments so far. We'll move on now and move on to the next session. Thanks very much indeed.
Apologies about the microphone, it slipped right down. So if you thought I was speaking through my navel, you know what. We've got, we take one for that.
Thank you very much. Can I take up the issue of recycling again? I had to go to the United States recently, and I'm looking at some stuff to recycle in my late sister's kitchen. And this cranberry bottle, I read the small print, and it had these incredible tiny prints on it. One was a 5 with a C and a line through it, and it said NB. The next was 10, C with a line through it, CA. That was the recycled value from Nevada or California. You've got 5 cents back in one state and 10 in the other. And California is very progressive. But the point here is, this was the state telling the manufacturer what to do, not us volunteering with a finger in the dike on the other side. They were stopping the flow. They were saying the product will be recycled. I think that's the most important thing you need to say on that. But the other thing you haven't mentioned is this wonderful coffee mug. It's not only recyclable, it's microwavable. You know, you haven't mentioned it. You've been giving them out to people. I want to try and find another one.
I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement, but I don't know if anybody wants to respond. If not, we'll move on to 3.
Yes, my question is about innovation. I shop at Headington Counters Co-op. I go there every day, and I like it very much. And I very much approve of the moves towards increasing healthy, sustainable food available. But there's an innovation there which I found very perplexing, and it's to me wholly unwelcome, and that is the American section, which has been there for just a few weeks. I've asked the people there about it and why they've got it, and they don't know. They say, oh, it was a decision made in head office. Well, on this American section, which is very similar to American sections that you find in Tesco's, you've got a range of products, mostly sort of cereals or biscuits or peanut butter cups, and nearly all of them have got genetically modified ingredients. They're stuffed full of genetically modified corn syrup, maize, cereal, boxes of cereals. In fact, the whole section is full of American unsustainable junk food that's being dumped here, and there seems to be a sort of effort to get people familiar with these brands, perhaps buttering us up for some future time when we're going to have huge quantities of stuff like this dumped here. Now, this goes against your policies that you've been talking about. So, can anybody in the panel explain the thinking behind the introduction of sections that focus on American genetically modified junk food?
I'd like to ask Bill to, our Chief Executive. It's an intercontinental question which I think is above the heads of us on the panel.
Hello, I'm not familiar with the specific range that's gone into Headington, but I do think you make a valid point. I think this range has been developed nationally, and it's part of the portfolio of product ranges that's available through the national co-op setup, along with other international ranges such as Korean food ranges, Afro-Caribbean food ranges, etc., etc. So it is part of a wider portfolio of ranges. However, I absolutely take your point in terms of the ingredients and the sort of counter messages that it's sending out in terms of the things we're trying to do. And so I can't give you the absolute detail on it, but what I will say to you today, I hear the message from members. We'll just take that away and review that policy as far as that particular ingredient set, because I think it is a fair point to make.
Can I take one from over this side of the hall?
Thank you. Just before I ask the real questions about what exactly are these artisans, I'm just a little concerned about the title as to what they really do. But my fundamental question is in respect of the figure that was given by the lady about people going to school. 1 in 4 go to school with obesity, or the issue of obesity, and yet equally we know that, I don't know what the number is, but a large number are going to school and the children are hungry. And then we're getting food banks, which you encourage us to support, and I think we do support, but it's about, is it the famous words, tough on something and tough on the causes of something. Well, it's all very well to support the food bank, but what is the cause of the food bank? And therefore I think we've got a much more complex issue to be looked at for what you're doing. Clearly you're identifying issues, but I don't think we're quite getting to how we're going to deal with the issues. Because some of our food might be creating the obesity, but equally we're still getting children going to school starving. So I think we need to look at that closely.
And it's a very, very important point. Clearly, one of the things that differentiates us as a cooperative is our engagement with society and the lawmaking process, and we've got the Co-op Party here, as you know very well, is our mouthpiece on those types of issues. And it's something we feel strongly about. And if you've got any specific suggestions about this, clearly anybody here, as to how we can do better, taking account of these broader issues, clearly we can't solve the problems of poverty ourselves, but it's something that we are very committed to supporting. Perhaps, Sarah, I don't know if you would like to add that on the question of nourishment.
Absolutely. I mean, like we said with our menus, all our children receive the same meals. They're very, well balanced, etc. So if we spot any child that may be in danger, not even before entering school at any stage of their lives, absolutely we'll follow the right process there.
Thank you. Could we take another question from this side? 6, please.
Thank you. I use edgeware, and it baffles people because it looks like oil-based plastic, but it's recycled in a completely different way. So how do you educate people to recycle it correctly? And have you thought of putting high temperature composters in your stores to collect it and recycle it?
Thank you for that. Actually, yes, we are about to embark on ways to encourage people to bring back the edgeware or to compost it in a responsible way. Certainly we have some suggestions from Cal Major over the last couple of weeks, putting us in contact with some of the people, her contacts that she has. But yes, very valid point. We're looking at, and we're in the very, very early days of exploring those opportunities. If we could catch up later, that'd be great.
Thanks. Could we have 2 at the back there, please?
Hello there, my name's John. I come from Oxford. I applaud the initiatives in Chipping Norton and Burton on the Water. I said I come from Oxford, which everybody thinks of as a very affluent city, but my local co-op store is in a suburb which features very high, almost the top, of deprivation scores. So what I would like to have is assurance from the co-op that you're not going to concentrate all your innovation issues in your upmarket stores and you won't forget the corner stores.
I mean, from the board, I can assure you that we are very conscious of the smaller stores. And living on the Cowley Road, just off the Cowley Road, I'm very conscious of the poverty that we have in Oxford and other cities that we represent. But I think that from a strategic point, perhaps Phil could say a few words about that.
Yeah, the world doesn't revolve around Chipping Norton and more on the water. And I can assure you, having run the food business for a couple of years, the board challenges constantly on that point. And indeed, when I talk this afternoon, I will update you in terms of how we're looking to expand our food business and the areas we're expanding. Because we are actually expanding our food business across all of our counties and we're investing in all of our stores. I think Adam's responsibility is for our food markets, which is why Adam's been talking about those stores as is Matt's. But actually there's a lot going on in our convenience stores and in all of our stores, particularly around innovation and product development and particularly as part of the Co-op brand product range development. So I'm sure you've seen some of the new products that have hit the shelves in the last few months through the Co-operative brand product development. I think we mentioned, or someone mentioned as part of the Owned by You trial, which is where we're trying to encourage members to trade more with us and understand the members' needs. One of the stores that was used as part of that trial was Cavendish Square in Swindon. And that store's in an area of high deprivation. So we particularly focused our efforts in terms of what do people need in those locations. There's a lot of young parents, a lot of single parents, and of course their needs are often very different to people that are shopping in more affluent locations. So we are putting effort and time into those stores as well, but I think the reason you're hearing about these things is because of the responsibilities of my colleagues up on the stage. So we'll try and make sure in future that we do cover off some of the other areas as well and things that we're doing. I will pick up some of that this afternoon as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. We've got time for one more question. Let me say 2 if we can be quick.
Thank you. I noticed that coffee is given away in, I can't remember which of the 2 premium stores you spoke about. There is coffee to buy in my store, ready to take away. In my store, it is not Co-op own brand fair trade. It is owned by Coca-Cola. I think in your premium stores, it is probably not Coca-Cola owned coffee that you're giving away. And I think the discrepancy is just so overwhelming. Free fair trade or pay Coca-Cola. It doesn't sit well. Have you got anything to say about that?
Well, the coffee we use, you're right, in our premium stores is Revolver, so it's Co-op and it's fair trade. It is a trial at the moment. It's partly owned by You Strategy, and at this stage we're just seeing how it works before we make any further moves.
Thanks. I'm afraid we've only got time for one more question, and I'll take this first person to show us here. But there'll be plenty of time later to ask questions in the
You had organic farms. Why aren't we using them more? The plastic you mentioned, you have bottle things there. Did you know that the cap of the bottle can be recycled, but the bottom can't? Why aren't we separating them when we put them in the container? Your education at schools, thank God, brilliant. But what I want to ask about is the plastic coating on your cucumbers and vegetables. Because if you put a plastic coat over me, it might shut me up. But there is no oxygen, and the natural process of food is to degenerate. If you buy food when it's fresh, you have the vitality. When you put it in a plastic thing, you have lost that vitality. Your research needs to look into the nutritional value that's left in food when you think it's kept better by plastic coats. Please don't buy too much food, so it has to be dumped. Only buy what you can sell. Then you won't be wasting our soil, our transport, and everything else.
Thank you.
I'm quite happy to answer part to that, what we're doing. So, as Adam mentioned, and then going back to Chipping Norton, but we've got around 60 lines that we have removed the plastic from, working with one of our local suppliers, Mudballs Farm, which is based in Warwickshire. And as Mike mentioned, you know, with some of the products it's really, really difficult, but we are working our way to ensure how we can remove plastic and give customers the option to choose loose products at the shelf and have that opportunity. We're also working with a lot of organisations within our trading estate, particularly the ROU, so the Royal Ag Union. So we're working with our local suppliers to understand actually with the innovation and their science part of the university to see actually what we can, how we can extend this out to more of our stores and actually really try and truly lead the way in removing plastic from our local suppliers is the element that I'm involved in. But I know there's a lot of pressure that we're trying to put on the guys at the Co-op group as well to try and get them, and I know they've made some commitments about removing plastic. I can't remember the exact date, I'm sure it'll come up later in the day. But we are trying our hardest.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much for your questions, and do please keep making suggestions. We'd much rather have positive suggestions from friends and members rather than criticism later on from customers. We need to learn.
And then hopefully Dr. Henry Jones will stay for lunch, and you can speak to him if you need to, or if you want to. So, any questions in the hands? Shall we take number 4?
How do you select your partner schools, and are they all primary or junior age?
Great question. I think there's an entire process that has lots of governance around it in terms of picking out our partner schools, and also schools we work with to a degree less than a full partnership. But a full process, probably longer, that explanation than we have right now, so happy to find you at lunchtime and take you through that if that helps.
Okay, number 5.
Hi, I was interested by your Viagra campaign, and I wondered if I could draw your attention to something called men's sheds, which are organised across the country, where men can get together and talk together, because men don't talk face to face, they talk side to side, they talk in workshops where they can do things at the same time, and that's the concept behind men's sheds, and getting them to talk about their conditions and getting their healthcare issues addressed. So I wonder if I can just suggest to you that you might want to consider men's sheds in the future.
Very good. I'm aware of men's sheds. I believe there's a book called 50 Shades of Grey, which is related to that. But I can also, I've been campaigning on appropriate TV channels, that men engage in talking about their health like women have been for years. So we don't just have tampon talk, but we have prostate prattle. And I would encourage men, to be in touch with their feelings and not be embarrassed or shy about things below the waist. Too many men are dying from embarrassment because they just won't tell the doctor or their friends about something they've noticed. And unless that changes, we're going to see more people dying of embarrassment and losing their lives unnecessarily. So men's sheds, great.
Okay, so I'm going to take one last question. There is one.
It's in relation to your Viagra campaign as well. Are you doing something similar to remove the stigma of women, and especially teenagers, getting the morning after pill?
Quite a lot of the emphasis that the site has, if you look at it, it's about the things which are difficult, and we don't want that embarrassment of going to see a health practitioner to be the barrier between getting access to healthcare or not. So morning after pill is a strong product for us. We spend a lot of time and effort talking, educating, and making it available to patients who want that. So in terms of a campaign, we're continually campaigning on that issue. It tends to be very digital in the campaigning rather than perhaps the radio campaign that we did with Dr. Hillary. But it's certainly an area that we're really keen to push on with, and absolutely if we can create more of a media noise about that, then we will do.